Hey, it's Francis Lamb, host of The Splendid Table. Every week on our show, we talk about food and cooking and the meanings of food and cooking. We talk with the most interesting people in food about their techniques, their culture, and everything in between. Whether it's about how fried chicken took over the world or how Instagram changes the way people are actually eating. It's a food show where everyone is welcome. Come join us. You can listen to The Splendid Table wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
So you don't charm the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil runs his groove in them rhythm and blues that sound. It's gonna get you sun in the end.
Welcome back to the Speakeasy. I'm Sother Teague.
And I'm Greg Benson.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, man. What have you been up to lately?
What I've been up to is craving a delicious blueberry mojito.
Well, you're not the only one. I have also been craving a delicious blueberry mojito because it's summertime, they tell me. I mean, it's rainy and cold here in Brooklyn, but blueberry mojito season is upon us. And at the seminar that I'm going to be co-hosting at Tales of the Cocktail with the one and only Dr. Nicola Nice, Dr. Nice lives up to the name. We are going to be doing a seminar about traditionally underrated drinks, aka like girly and brunch drinks, and put a big old like air quotes around both of those things.
Sure.
So to get folks involved, get everybody fired up about this, we're having a little recipe contest here on the Speakeasy. Send us your blueberry mojito recipes. I want to see them, I want to read them, I want to make them, and I want to drink them. And the winner is going to get a signed copy of Nicola's new book, The Cocktail Parlor: How Women Brought the Cocktail Home. So you get that, and more importantly, you get bragging rights. So send us your blueberry mojito recipes by Monday. That is the 20th. That is the due date for this contest. So get those into us now. It is upon us. And speaking of things happening next week, I also want to plug that Tuesday night, I'm going to be at Someday Bar. And I'm going to be taking confessions. This is the first performance of After Dark Confessions with Father Greg. Premise is simple. You write down something you've done anonymously, drop it in the collection plate. I will read it out loud to the bar, and then we'll pick a winner based on audience applause. And that winner has two choices at that point. One, they can continue to remain unknown, or two, they can reveal themselves, subject themselves to a unknown but probably large amount of public ridicule, answer the definitely embarrassing follow-up questions I'm going to have, and then get a free shot of whiskey. I don't know about you. I know which one I would pick, but I don't want to speak.
This seems like a mountain to climb for a free shot of whiskey.
You would be surprised how few people take option number one. It's zero. Zero people have taken option number one. So that's going to be happening this Tuesday at Someday Bar in downtown Brooklyn on Atlantic Avenue, right around the corner from our friends at Grand Army, incidentally. So going to be a really fun show, going to be sacrilicious, as I like to say. Yes. So come on out and unburden your soul.
Well, you said this is the first time. This has kind of been a beta somewhere else before, right? We've talked about it.
We did, yeah. So we beta tested this a little bit during the Krampus Cove pop-up that I was doing over there, which is a offshoot, sort of the evil miracle from our friend, the wonderful ladies behind Black Lagoon, who we had on the show last fall during spooky season. So this was kind of I did this originally. We sort of road tested this with me in character as the sort of burnt out mall Santa who was soliciting these confessions from people. But we were kind of like, there's nothing that's specifically holiday coded about this. Like we could do this all year long. So we're putting a nice, super, just very hedonistic sheen on it. Heathenistic sheen on it. We're going to get real heretical with it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very, very excited. Everybody always has a good time. The proof in the pudding is that people always put more confessions in for round two, whether or not they see that people are having fun or whether they're just drunk enough to confess to something at that point. I don't know. It's why not both? But it's honestly a super fun time. And I love doing it because it's really just like unlike anything else that I've ever seen or that I've ever done. So it's fun for me. And if for no other reason, come out and see me have fun, because I like to think that that's a good time for everybody.
It is. Everyone loves to watch Greg have fun while dressed. Did you have a cassock on in that photo I saw, or was that just
What is a cassock exactly?
That's the floor-length black multi-button square-collared priest robe.
No, this was just a generic priest shirt and collar and a black suit. But fun fact, you can just buy like holy vestments on Amazon. They don't like check your ID or anything. Like you can just plunk a credit card down and get that. So that's what's going down this Tuesday.
Yeah, I have a cassock. That's why I even know what that word is.
Why do you have a cassock? What were you doing?
It was a Halloween thing some years ago, but I still have it. You can borrow if you need.
I was gonna say.
It's got like, I don't know, 100 buttons from the collar to the floor.
Well, since I'm a little taller than you, so I'm wondering if maybe it would be like a mini skirt sort of cassock thing on me. Like not that that's a deal breaker at all. Just
which was certainly add a dimension to your confessional.
It's true. Well, I mean, it's about to be summer and air conditioning season here in New York City, so you got to find ways to keep it breezy down there, right?
I got it. Absolutely.
I have no idea how I'm going to segue from that into our guest. That is, I gave myself nothing to work with.
I'm looking forward as well. You're on your own, kid. Get it done.
All right, I'll just say, speaking of keeping it breezy, live from Vancouver, Canada, we have Kaitlyn Stewart, bartender extraordinaire, world traveler, and winner of World Class 2017. So, Kaitlyn, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today.
You know what? It is my absolute pleasure to follow that lovely intro. It's giving me flashbacks of, my days in Catholic school. So, it's the segue actually worked.
Do you have ruler scars on the backs of your palms?
You know what? Not quite, but I do have a lot of Catholic guilt that I live with every day, even though I am not a practicing Catholic anymore. So those are the mental scars are there. That's for sure.
That's the nature of guilt. You don't even have to be associated anymore.
Exactly.
Well, let's get right into it. Listen, you are all over the internet on Instagram and TikTok as Likeable Cocktails.
That I am.
You have a tremendous following that it seems that you built kind of during the pandemic. But let's reel the clock back a little. Greg already mentioned 2017, which, gosh, that seems like so long ago. And I remember when this was like fresh news. 2017, you won, obviously, Canada's World Class and then went on to win the Global, right? Pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's it seems like yesterday and like 20 years ago, all at the same time.
I feel like we're all experiencing that phenomenon of time meaning kind of nothing. Yeah, right?
Especially with the pandemic thrown in there. It was like 3 years of my life just kind of like happened. And I'm like, oh, what? Yeah, so time has definitely shifted, but 2017 seems like a lifetime ago, for sure.
Well, let's reel it back even way further than 2017. Okay. My dad owned a bar when I was a kid, and I was constantly in the bar, like trucking beer from the cooler up to the bar for quarters that I would then turn around and put into the video games that were there. So my dad made his money right back. Pretty brilliant business prospect, actually. But
that's vertical integration, baby.
Yeah, man. That's company dime. That's what that is.
There you go.
Sell my soul to the company store. But you spent your time as a kid at The Keg, where your parents apparently met, right?
Yeah, I was basically like born and raised in booth number 33. But yeah, my dad used to run The Keg, which I guess that they're kind of all over, but mostly in Canada. It's like a steakhouse. And back in the day, in my dad and my mom's early 20s, I think my mom was a lounge server and he was a young buck manager on the floor. And yeah, so my entire life grew up in restaurants and just kind of has been a family thing in I guess I've carried on the tradition of still working in hospitality.
Sure, but wasn't necessarily your plan, right? You, as a young person, I did some digging on you. That's what we do here.
Ooh, I like this. I like the
stalking. But you, as a young person, you were
professional stalking.
You were into a lot of things, right? You were into acting. You were in some television commercials. You were dancing. You were playing soccer.
Yeah, right? I wasn't the type of kid who liked to sit around and do nothing. I was definitely busy, go, 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 which is, still kind of followed me into my 30s. But yeah, I danced as a kid. I played soccer at like the national team level for Canada. I got to play a summer in San Marino in my 20s, which was amazing. But yeah, originally I was going to university, and that's kind of when I stepped into, the restaurant world, as many people do, to help pay for school. It's an evening time job, and like I said, it was kind of in my family. So it was kind of an easy transition. And I started, as a hostess and then, as a server, and then found my way into the bar. And at that point I was actually, I didn't drink. I was a sober bartender for the first 4 years.
And I read that as well.
Yeah. And I kind of just fell in love with it. And, it was a great job to have. It helped pay for school. I was also teaching dance at the same time too. So I was kind of moonlighting, doing many different things. And it wasn't until I found like a really cool mentor here in Vancouver who showed me like this completely different side of bartending that I had no idea existed, which was kind of like the competition, really niche craft cocktail side. And when he kind of threw me into my first competition, it was kind of fun because it kind of brought all those things together, like the performing aspect of, being a dancer and like a singer and doing television commercials and doing all that kind of stuff. But then also the creative side of things. I was going to university, I was taking film, and I just loved I was such a movie junkie. I just loved watching how films were made and the nuances and, all that kind of fun stuff. And it kind of was like competitions kind of brought all those things together. And it was a chance for me to get creative outside of just making a cocktail. Creating stories and drama, all that kind of fun stuff that goes along with it.
Well, right. It seems like a lot of those things came together. I mean, every bartender we've ever met is alpha, right? You want to be out front. You want to be in the center of the crowd, center of attention, rather. So you have that as an actor and a dancer and maybe even running around on the soccer field. Your mentor was Justin Taylor, and that was at Boulevard Kitchen and Oyster, right?
You got it.
But it seems to me that this combining of all those things and that interest in film, is that what you were studying in university?
Yeah, I was going for film, and it was more like film theory, and kind of like, learning about cinematography and, the history and all that kind of stuff. We did some like practical, like assignments, creating short films and whatnot, but it was mostly all like kind of the behind the scenes stuff and really learning about even just like using color in film and how Hitchcock used to like, stage all of his scenes with, different nuanced colors in the background to kind of create a mood and all that kind of fun stuff. So it was, I loved it. It was great.
I mean, it seems to me that this all is the stepping stones that have led to now the fact that you are a creator on, in the visual medium using a camera. Like
it has kind of come full circle, which is odd. For sure.
I mean, do you think it's odd, or do you think it's just simply a logical conclusion?
Well, I mean, I guess in a way it is, but when I first started bartending and I took on bartending as like my main career and my main like focus, I didn't ever really foresee it being pushed into the avenue of putting it out there as like a form of, quote unquote entertainment for people to kind of watch and take in. Yes, like being behind the bar and as a bartender, you have people sitting at the wood. That is entertainment. It's my favorite place to sit is at the bar top because, you watch the bartender almost, work like a conductor, or basically they're doing like a ballet back there with, how they're moving from point A to point B and taking care of everybody. I love watching that. And so being able to kind of bring a bit of that in-person vibe to a bunch of people on social media is really interesting. And I'm glad that it's happened this way, but it wasn't something that I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be the end goal. It's just interesting.
Yeah, we've been having a few more creators on the show recently. And I wanted to get you on because I think, and Greg can correct me here, you're the first creator that we've had on who is still bartending, or at least came from bartending and is still bartending, right? Most of the folks we've had on have just sort of, as I said, they just bubbled up out of the ground. They already had maybe film in their pocket or photography in their pocket, and they attached it to drinks. So I think it's like, I don't want to say it's more authentic the way you went. Either way, doesn't matter whether he dived or he dove, he still came up wet, right? So I don't know if there's a correct or an incorrect path. But I feel like when I watch your stuff, I feel like my eye sees those movements that look a little bit more natural. Do you find that to be true? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to kind of when we first started to see kind of, the cocktail creator pop up in social media, there wasn't a ton of them, but there was probably like a handful of people that you're like, oh, this is cool. But like as a bartender, you're kind of like, what does this guy know? You're kind of get a little bit skeptical about, somebody trying to, put information out there unless you do like the deep dive and really understand the reason behind why, why we shake a cocktail, why we versus stir a cocktail or throw a cocktail or build a drink. if you're doing it just because you're mimicking somebody else, you saw somebody else do it that way. But like, do you really understand like the nuance behind it? And so, yeah, there was a bit of prejudgment for me, years ago, but now getting into this space and actually getting to know some of these people who may have never traditionally worked behind a bar, but have actually put a lot of effort into research and really doing their due diligence. It's really cool to see how much passion people have for it who haven't come from like the world that we have, as that traditional kind of, you pay your dues as a barback, as a bartender, and you go to seminars and you take on other people's nuances when you sit at a bar and you're like, ooh, I like the way that they hold their jigger. I'm going to try that out. So yeah, when I'm watching certain people or, random accounts pop up and I'm like, I can tell maybe who has been behind a bar, and maybe who hasn't, but that's just because I've got more of a keen eye for it, I guess, because I've been doing it for 20 years.
What's the same thing with like, for me, editing and making and writing podcasts now, like I can, when I listen to, say Serial, This American Life, Dan Savage's podcast, whatever,
right.
You see stuff that you're like, I know that 99% of people aren't going to see this. But like, once you have that level of knowledge of how things get into the final stages, you kind of have this appreciation for the people who really have a mastery of their craft versus the times that you're listening to something and you're like, oh, that take didn't go the way they planned. I see the way they had to wallpaper that. It's a nice edit, but like I see what they were having to do there.
Yeah, it didn't come natural. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's such a big space, right? I mean, I try to stay authentic to myself and what I put out there for content. I know that I'm not making, videos for the small 1%ers. I don't need to teach how Ego Peroni how to make a daiquiri. I think he's quite capable of doing that. But so the content that I put out there is very specific to people who, aren't professional bartenders. Or maybe they're just cocktail enthusiasts and they want to do stuff at home. So I'm very mindful about tailoring the way I say things and the way I present things so that it's more digestible to a bigger, broader audience and not just my like kind of niche cocktail nerds out there. Because I could get nerdy. I could bring out my Spinzall and start clarifying things and methyl cellulose and start talking mumbo jumbo and maybe 5 people would catch or understand what I'm saying, but you kind of start to learn like who your audience is and what actually you want to put out there versus need to put out there. It's been a learning curve, but it's pretty fun. It's interesting.
Talk to me about that, because I dabbled a little bit in the content creation game, and first of all, like, it's hard work. Like
Greg, you were making drinks in the shower.
Yes. It's harder than it looks, Sother. It's real slippery in there. But even then, these were like 45-second videos, and like the first few ones took like 2 hours to edit. I mean, like eventually you get good at it, but like talk to me about that learning curve. And I'm also very curious, like, what was there a point where you were like, oh shit, people are really liking this? Like, was there a point where you were like, oh man, this has legs and isn't just some fun thing, some spaghetti I'm throwing at the wall and hoping that it sticks?
Yeah. I mean, when I first started doing it, it was like, beginning of the pandemic. I have like a personal account. I've got KDOS. That's my personal account. I've had it for years and I've got, like a decent following over that. But again, they're all bartenders and they're all people who already know how to make drinks. When pandemic hit, I had a ton of regulars and people who used to sit at my bar reach out to me, being like, oh man, we miss sitting at the bar. Is there any way you can give us the recipe to your perfect old fashioned or margarita? How do you make that one drink that I love that you made that time? And yada, yada, yada. Your regulars, you want to send them their stuff and you're like, yes, do this. And so I was like, you know what? This is a lot harder to explain and type out in a message. Like, maybe I'll just start making little videos. So I started making videos and I was like, I don't need to put these up on my account because, like, again, this is like not really for my bartender friends who already know what's going on. So I kind of came up with like, okay, let's start a different account. Let's go with, I don't even remember how I came up with the name Likeable Cocktails, but it stuck and I was like, great. And so I started putting out these little informational videos and, the first few, I look back and I'm like, ugh, like this is before like Reels and TikTok. This was like, you're still kind of making, what was it, like IGTV and like YouTube stuff, right? Yeah. So it's longer format and it's just like, it's pretty, it's funny to look back at them, but I see the progression. And when they started kind of getting a little bit of movement, I was like, oh, okay, this is like, people are actually enjoying this. And I started to see, I had enough videos out that I started to see what was, doing well and what wasn't, and what format was working and what wasn't, and what people were interested in and what they weren't. And so I started to roll with it. And then that's when Reels came along, and Reels started picking up steam. And same with TikTok. I mean, there was a few, beverage creators out there that were doing it, but a lot of them were like, make this party jungle juice in your bathtub, and this is for the best college drink in the world. And I'm like, that's not what I do, but good for you. You got a big following. That your audience is not my audience. So just, keep plugging away. And a couple of videos got a lot of hits, and then more people started following. And yeah, just like gradually, kind of like a tumbleweed, started picking up more and more speed and more dust. And away we went with it. So here I am.
I think Likeable Cocktails is a great handle because you're on a platform where you're asking people to give you likes.
Exactly.
So these are likable.
Well, and that's the thing too. It's like, and I want the drinks to be likable. They don't have to be like, every single one doesn't have to be a home run, right? But they all can be likable. Like, yeah, I like this. This was good. This is a very likable beverage.
Sure, almost like a double entendre, really.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm Lou Bank.
And I'm Greg Benson.
And this is an ad for Ancestral Agave Syrup, the critically acclaimed award-winning syrup that helps gringo bartenders better make margaritas, Negronis,
Lou, hold up. Wait,
old
are you just
fashions?
This is how you start your podcast.
What?
It's not an ad for Ancestral Agave Syrup.
Well, of course it is. I'm just cutting costs by not paying writers to make something new. I'm just using an old script.
You pay writers?
Is that some kind of jab?
No, I'm just saying that.
What are you saying?
Well, look, we've got this amazing syrup that's made in an ancestral manner, cooked down from the sap of the agave, harvested the way these families would to make pulque. It's a quality product. It deserves a quality presentation.
Yeah, okay, hang on. Ancestral agave syrup is made by real families following traditional methods. Unlike the industrial Blue Weber syrup you get everywhere else, Ancestral is cooked down from aguamiel, harvested from Salmiana in Hidalgo, Mexico. It is the grade A Vermont maple to the sticky diner syrup you've been using for your cocktails. Ingredients matter, both in how your cocktail tastes and how you treat the earth. Ancestral is better for both. Is that good?
Sure. Or maybe confusing instead of cheesy. Look, just visit ancestralagave.com to learn more and to order your world-class agave syrup today.
And we'll call that a wrap. Catch you next ad, Greg.
Hasta pronto?
Ancestral Agave Syrup. Available online at ancestralagave.org and wherever Greg and Lou are able to coerce store owners into carrying it.
You started this during the pandemic, and I kind of did a similar thing, right? But I was doing AMAs once a week, where I would get a lot of traction and a lot of a lot of questions, literally. And I made it my mission to answer all of them. And, the AMA lasts 24 hours. And sometimes I was answering, 100 plus questions or more even. I didn't think to spin that up because I was also, flailing around trying to keep my business alive.
Yeah.
You, it seems, kind of captured that beginning of that wave, applied some of the knowledge that you already had from university and your interest in film, and kind of just spun this out into this wild thing. Like, how has it changed your life? And what does it mean? We've only had a few creators on, but we've asked them kind of the same question. Like, what does it mean? What does your daily existence look like? I get up, go in, prep up, we run the bar, we have service, we close down, we clean up, we walk away. Like, what's your...
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, it was interesting. I think, everybody was forced to stay at home. So, at that point, had one world-class in 2017, all of 2018, all of 2019, I was on an airplane like every other week, flying around the world, woe is me. It was amazing. I loved it. And this was like, but the pandemic hit and everybody was grounded. And it was the first time in years that I was forced to stay home for a length of time. And I was like, whoa, this is weird. And then you got really comfortable with it. And so I was able to, take the time to actually kind of figure some stuff out and create kind of these videos and stuff. So my day-to-day was totally different than what it was before. We closed down our bar. We never reopened. We were in the financial district and nobody was going to the office anymore.
The Royal Dinette, right?
Yeah, we were there for 5 years and we're like, we didn't see an end anytime soon to this pandemic, and rent is expensive in Vancouver. So as you know, in New York. So we closed down, and I was still doing a lot of stuff online. I was still doing a lot of like educational stuff online for a lot with Diageo. They were really great with kind of keeping us in the loop with lots of different projects. And then I started taking on just some like contract work. So I really went into my kind of beverage curator. So I helped open a few bars as like everybody was slowly starting to open back up. So I helped with some bar programs and training and building out back bars and, all the fun behind the scenes stuff that nobody sees. And I had the opportunity, lots of opportunities to be like, hey, we're opening this bar. Do you want to come join the team and this and that? And I was like, you know what? I'm actually really, for once in my life, enjoying working for myself and not, having to be in a structured schedule. So I kind of kept working for myself, which gave me the opportunity to keep doing the videos. I still now don't consider content creation my full-time job because I have lots of other stuff, but it's quickly become like an equal, I would say. And it's really hard to balance that because I like first and foremost consider myself a bartender forever till the end of time. And I still get behind the bar, or whenever I, travel and get to do some guest shifts or do pop-ups, or, if I'm down at Tails or whatever. And if I have the opportunity to jump behind a bar, it's great. But it's really cool to be able to see the other side of things, to work with these brands that I love so much, that I've worked with forever, but in the capacity, not behind the bar, but in like the marketing side. And it's vastly different because, as bartenders, we work with great spirits, but we don't really have to have kind of like that, like wherewithal of like, how do we push these products for people to buy them? It's like, no, we're pushing people to buy our cocktails, not the individual spirit. Whereas now on this side of things, it's like, if I, get contacted by a spirits brand to do a sponsored video, you really have to think about, oh, you want the consumer to buy your product, not just enjoy this beverage with whatever gin. You want them to use Empress. You want them to use Tanqueray. You want them to go out and buy this stuff. So it's a different type of responsibility that I feel. So I turned down a lot of sponsorships because it just doesn't align with my ethos and what I like and what I want to push and put out there, because I've now built this audience of people that trust me.
Yep.
And they trust, what I use and what I say. So I'm not going to push a bunch of stuff on them just to get a paycheck. But it is very interesting trying to balance that out as well when you've never really had to think about it.
Right. Well, I'm very much sort of on the business side of this business.
Mm-hmm.
The business of the business. Yes.
The business of the business.
So I'm curious, and that of course I think means that many of our audience are curious as well. How does it work? Talk to me a little bit more about sort of the brass tacks. How do you get yourself out there in front of brands? How do brands approach you? Which way works more? Just give me, because many people are trying to break into bartending. Many people are trying to break into the creator scene, and I think that one is easier to break into because it's you go get a job and then you work there.
Yep.
And the other is you have to create all of it. So how does one create all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have a little bit of a different advantage than some because I work with brands and people that I know that I have a lot of the time that I have personal relationships with because of working behind a bar, because I go and I travel and do different, seminars and whatnot. If I'm at BCB or Tails, I get to talk to the reps, and I have a personal relationship. So sometimes it works that way where it's just like, hey, we know Kaitlyn's good for doing ABC, you should contact her. But a lot of the times it's through a different agency. So it's through an actual marketing firm that you're dealing with, not the people who are actually trying to, that are brand ambassadors. So yeah, I mean, I'll get reached out to through DM, through personal connection. I know a lot of people work with management teams and management companies. I'm not signed to one, but I do work with a couple of guys who, when stuff comes across their kind of, their radar, they'll shoot me a message, or I'll loop them in if I don't have the capacity to like handle contracts and deal with like negotiations, because that was a big learning curve too, right? It's like this, nobody wants to talk about money, nobody wants to talk about contracts, and when you come into a space that you have no idea of how it works, it was like it's like anything, like a baby bartender. If you Imbibe comes up to you and it was like, hey, we want 7 cocktail recipes to put in our next issue, it's great exposure, or we're going to pay you $50 a recipe, that baby bartender is like, absolutely, yes, let's do it. But then you have like your elder who's like, they're doing what? You're giving them all of this content for what? So it was kind of the same thing in like the content world of social media. It's like, oh, you're doing how many videos, and they want the rights to it for how long, and you're chained to them for how many months, and they're only giving you what? So it was a big learning curve that way to try to figure out,
well, as you just said, sort of maybe your mentor would come to you and say, you're selling yourself too cheap, you're devaluing the market, et cetera. But when you're out there as sort of as an individual, a sole proprietor of your own personal business and brand, who do you look to? Do you reach out to some of your other creator friends? And
I have.
And then how did you make those friends in the first place that they were at a level where you could call them up and do, as you said, talk about the money, which I am not afraid to do. I will talk about the money.
It's, I kind of did it from my own personal experience of, how I would, if somebody wanted me to come and talk on a panel or do something like that, I'm like, okay, usually I charge XYZ for that. Then I kind of parlayed that over. And then when you start to kind of like recognize or, get appreciation from different people within kind of like this same sector that you're doing. And some people are really vocal about it. And it's like, hey, I'll tell you what I charge. I'm working with a management company. This is what they put out into the world. So then you're like, oh, like I'm really underselling myself, or like, wow, like that's amazing. Maybe I should try to lean towards asking for that. But I mean, I don't know, like asking for money is I don't know. I hate it. But at the same time, it's like I like I said, I put all of my own money into buying the products, and what you see, when I put videos out, it's not every single one gets paid for. I'm Canadian as well, so there's no creator fund. There's no way to like monetize off of, just putting videos out there and getting views and clicks. So it's like at the end of the day, if I get a couple sponsored posts, I'm like, hallelujah, like I can go out and buy some more chartreuse. That shit's expensive. But
or you can go out and buy the equipment that it takes, the cameras, the lighting, what I mean? Like there's a whole lot more than just, grabbing a tripod and slapping your iPhone on there, right?
I mean, that's what I do now. Tripod and iPhone. But that's just because I would love to get into the, I would love for my videos to look even more high quality and more professional, and all that stuff. And eventually, hopefully I'll get to that stage. But for the time being, I'm like, I just don't have the time to actually sit down and like learn that other skill. Because it's a completely other skill. I've mastered how to do it on my iPhone, and I've mastered how to like figure that out. But eventually it'd be nice to like, use an actual camera and, maybe use like an actual editing thing. But
I think there's 2 avenues to approach there, which would be 1, certainly, sit down and learn those skills. 2, generate enough revenue from what you're doing to hire someone who has those skills to do that part for you. Like you don't have to do every job. I don't wash the dishes anymore at the bar. I pay someone to do that so I can focus on the thing that's more important, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that would be the dream. It was like what we were talking about earlier before we started this. Like I'm in the process of moving, and, moving all of my bottles and glassware and literally everything to a new apartment in a new space is like, hell. But I'm like, I wish I had a studio that I could just, get all of this stuff out of my home and into a studio space. And, even if it's just like something small, but the cost of rent in Vancouver I checked out a place, and for like just under 200 square feet, like no bathroom, no sink, literally just a room with 4 walls. They were asking for like 200 square feet. They were asking like, what was it? Like $2,100 a month.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Ludicrous.
Good Lord.
I mean, that's New York pricing.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, so I'm going to continue to work out of my home and figure it out.
If your home has a closet, I'm just saying it's
there you go.
Get that podcast chic.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Greg and I are certainly doing the podcast from our homes. I'm in my sort of liquor closet. He's in an actual closet.
Yeah.
But I don't do
I
this
came out of the closet years ago, guys. Come on. No more closets for me.
I'm still in here. It's very toasty in here.
You're halfway in, Greg. But I don't. This isn't my job. I go to my job, right?
Yeah.
Greg does some podcasting stuff for other people, so that is part of his job in his house. How does it feel to live and work in the same space? I know a lot of people do it, but I picture those people sitting on their laptop and moving from the kitchen to the coffee table to the whatever. But to have an entire space dedicated in your home that effectively looks like a professional bar, and then you have to live with it. Like if I had to walk through Amore Margot to go from my living room to my kitchen, I don't think I would be as excited about Amore Margot as I am.
It's you know what, it was one of those things when I first started the channel and I was doing it, you know, in this current apartment that I'm in right now, I was lucky enough to have a big enough space to kind of like facilitate it. And then when we were looking for a new apartment, that was something that, you know, every place that we went and checked out, that we really kept in like the forefront of our minds, being like, okay, so does this actually have a space that's slightly separated from like the living room, that it doesn't feel like you're sitting like in like basically a bar. And because like my partner works from home as well, and my partner doesn't drink. So, you know, having a bar in the middle of your home and just, you know, being surrounded by it is not always like great for somebody who doesn't drink. But I'm like super appreciative that, you know, I am allowed the space that I have, and it works out. Like we have a 2-bedroom apartment. The second bedroom is the in-home office that is, you know, a safe haven away from, you know, the rest of the space. And during the day, like right now, my partner's tucked away in the office and I'm out here in the main like living room, and we make it work. But yeah, I mean, it would be nice to have something outside of the home, so it didn't feel like bottles were constantly taking over every nook and cranny. And
I just feel like I would feel like I was always at work.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I wouldn't have an escape.
And it's super important. Like, that's why, I mean, I've been starting this like moving vlog on socials, because I can't really film any like actual cocktail content right now because my bar is destroyed. But I've been filming this moving like vlog, and it's fun to kind of listen to people or to see people's comments being like, oh, it's cool watching all your stuff move over. I didn't realize you had so many, you know, so much glassware, so many bottles of booze. And I'm like, either did I, to be completely honest. Everything was tucked away behind doors that you couldn't see through. And now you can see it all. So I'm very hyper aware. And so it's been kind of interesting trying to plot and plan how I'm going to, you know, set up this new bar space where it doesn't, again, look like you're just sitting in the middle of a liquor store, and curate it so it looks homey at the same time and livable. But for the time being, I don't know.
I do think we all like to have this like notion of ourselves in our heads of like, I mean, I don't really have that much stuff, right? Like on the whole, I'm not a slave to capitalism. I lead a very zen, very just like, I love the simple things in life, and I'm satisfied by simple, and nothing brings that illusion crashing down on your shoulders like moving.
No, I'm a maximalist at heart. I collect too many things, and my partner is like a minimalist. So especially when you're moving, it brings out the two sides of like, oh crap, how do I hide my shit?
but all of my tchotchkes are so nice though. Like,
I collect Lego. I love Lego. I collect it. I have it everywhere. It's the same with like sneakers. I collect sneakers. So my like shoe closet is like exploding. Hats. I've got hats everywhere in my apartment. So it's it's great. I love it. Yeesh.
Well, I can tell you're a Lego fan because you pluralize it as Lego. That's how you can tell the real purists from the pretenders.
Legos.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, come on. What is this, your first day? Yeah. I'm not going to say when you start a cocktail and Lego blog, I will be your first subscriber.
Perfect.
But I did want to ask a little bit about just like, you know, we're talking about very extensively about the physical limitations of like, you know, living in a physical space and having to do this. What is it like living in an online space? I always really enjoy how people kind of psychologically cope with that, because having to be that publicly all the time is not nothing. And I feel like, you know, everyone has their own way of doing it, but everyone that we've brought on from this world has said that like, yes, you have to develop tools to make that a livable arrangement with yourself. So I'm curious what yours are.
Yeah, you know what? I like to think that I have a fairly healthy relationship with like the online world. And I mean, I'm unapologetically myself, like online and in person. So kind of what you see is what you get. It's not two different identities. So if you were to meet me outside, if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok or something, and then you were to meet me in reality, you're very much going to get the same person. But there was a time when I think like the first like year into it, when I started to get a decent following, like living in the comment section, you get some people who are like just nasty out there. But I'm like, I just like want to give them a hug. I'm like, who hurt you? Like, who hurt you that you feel like it's okay to be so hateful to a complete stranger about something that's like cocktail related? Like, I'm not, sending somebody to the moon. I'm not like, doing brain surgery. I'm making a friggin' drink. It's not that deep. But like some people get really aggressive about it. And I kind of had to like take a step back and be like, do I respond to everybody? No. If I'm having a petty day, sure. But I had to kind of like get that balance. And even with my partner, like living on my phone constantly and just like, responding to comments, emails. And because I do everything on my phone, I edit on my phone, I email through my phone, it's just constantly in my face. So I've had to make a conscious effort to, when my partner and I are sitting on the couch and we're, watching TV, or if we're out on a date, or if we're doing something, that I put that away and I leave it away. It doesn't always happen, but I have to, really make that conscious effort to be like, these are work hours and these are non-work hours, especially when you work for yourself. I'm sure the both of you know, it's like, I could respond to that email, but it's also 8 p.m. on Friday night. Do I need to respond to it right now? No, like that is outside of my parameters of work hours. So creating a bit of that structure is super important, especially when you're kind of living on the online space, because you constantly feel available to everybody 24 hours a day.
Yeah. And I mean, my quip about it is that when you work for yourself, you never have to be working, but you always should be.
Yeah. And you kind of always are.
Yeah. I know. And it sucks because, like, I don't know. And I think maybe there's a certain type of person that gravitates towards, I think we all became bartenders because we like being on and going for these long stretches where we're just dialed in and working. And it's tough to disengage from that when, your iPhone doesn't have a last call. Your iPhone, you can tell it to flip on the lights and be like, okay, time to go to bed. But no one actually obeys it when they do that. Show me one person who doesn't snooze the focus mode thing that comes on whenever they've decided to tell their iPhone to tell them to go to bed. And I will
I've never used that. I've never used that function for that reason.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, I know everyone that I know who does it. Like, I'll be talking to them at 10:30, like, oh, hang on, my phone's about to kick me off this because I'm going to go into focus mode. Let me call you back. And I'm like, then why is this here?
Yeah.
And I would definitely love to talk to you a little bit more about kind of like the specifics and maybe some, if you have them, fun horror stories about living online. Can you keep you around for that a little bit and have that for our as a bonus for our regulars?
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. Well, in that case, before we do, for everybody else, do you have a Instagram or any projects you want to plug? Any?
Always.
Yeah. All right. Go. Well, now's your chance. The floor is yours.
Well, you can find me online on any of the social media sites as Likeable Cocktails. What else? I'm working on a book right now. I'm in my final stages. I have to deliver my manuscript in July. So I'm like right at the end of it. That should be coming out next year, 2025, which I'm super excited about. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Can you drop a title or?
Title is still...
Okay.
We're still working it out, but it'll probably have Likeable Cocktails plastered on it somewhere. So there you go. It's great. I'm working with 10 Speed Press and Penguin Random House for that, which I'm really stoked about. I mean, I'll be at Tales of the Cocktail this year. I'm doing helping present a seminar on the 25th at like 2:30, I think. I'll be around kicking it, doing lots of fun stuff. Catch me online.
What's your seminar topic in Tales?
I believe it's all about like home bartending. So a little bit kind of what we're doing in the social media space. So it's like navigating brands in the home bartending space. So that'll be a fun one. It'll be, really great. But other than that, just catch me online. I'm like I said, in the process of moving. So hopefully you'll see like a new space that I'll be making cocktails out of. And it'll be fun, but that's about it.
Yeah,
hanging
I'm
out.
excited for that, and I'm excited for your Lego and cocktail blog. So
there you go.
Sounds like you've got a lot of stuff coming up. So I guess to everybody, stay tuned. But
stay tuned.
For now, that is going to do it for us this week on the Speakeasy. Hey, Sother's got another reason to become one of our regulars. You can see the adorable little Lego thing that Sother just held up. Is that you?
I love it.
What is that?
It's me. See the red glasses.
Oh my God! What?
My leather apron.
If I had my Lego collection at my current apartment, I'd show you mine too. I have a little mini Lego Kaitlyn that has a baseball cap. It's pretty cute.
I feel so left out. I don't have a Lego Greg. I guess you're gonna. I'll have.
Yours would be a Grego, buddy. Come on.
Oh yeah.
Grego the Lego.
This is why your book came out before mine did. So.
All right, pal.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us this week on the Speakeasy. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. If you want to hear the rest of our conversation with Kaitlyn, become one of our regulars over on Patreon. We will drop the link to that in the show notes. And stay tuned next week when we're going to have Guillaume Thomas from Martingale Cognac on, which I am very, very excited to talk to you about.
Cognac.
Because his cognac is quite tasty. But for now, thank you very much for listening. Kaitlyn, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Time.
Well, don't forget, get us those blueberry mojito recipes.
Yes, get us the blueberry mojito recipes.
Yeah.
Come out and see me possibly in a miniskirt cassock on Tuesday. And for now, cheers, everyone.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you.
So you don't charm the devil with your rock.
The Speakeasy is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food and drink radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.
Hey everybody, I'm Nick Latham.
And I'm Leah Bottima.
And we're the hosts of Were You Raised by Wolves?
Each week we try to make the world a kinder, nicer place.
Well, that's the idea, at least.
I mean, we try.
Have you ever wondered what to do if you're ghosted?
Or what to do when a friend asks you to borrow money?
Or the proper way to eat Cheetos?
You know, the big questions.
So please find Were You Raised by Wolves wherever you listen.